All right. All right, we good.
Cool. It just went final.
Cool. You want to take it?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, we are live. Just went final game two. The Denver Nuggets are able to tie up the series tonight, 128 to 109. The Blazers get that big win in game one, and unfortunately just didn't come out with the same sense of urgency that they did. Denver just looked like they wanted the game a lot more. Diced up Portland's defense pretty good. Portland had trouble recovering on defense. There was a lack of help. Nikola Jokic was his usual phenomenal self with let me get this right 38 points on 15 of 20 shooting from the field. Um, and Denver got a lot more help. And in this game, outside of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, Portland just didn't get a ton of offensive production. We saw an awesome stretch from Damian Lillard in the second quarter, but other than that, Portland looked a little disjointed on offense and just a little lost on defense. Denver was a better team tonight, and we'll get to more nuance with the game in a bit, but Denver's able to even the series tonight 1-1.
Yeah, it was dare I say a difficult game. Things just never I mean it was really never in doubt that Denver was going to win. I think that it became obvious when Dame went on his absolutely insane stretch there in the second quarter specifically, and even with that we only cut it to 4 at the best, and
Mm-hmm.
outside of that it wasn't really close the whole way through. So
No, and defensively, Portland has really had a hard time adjusting all season. Um, they do okay when their initial game plan works, but in-game adjustments are very tough. So in game one, um, Portland's initial game plan worked out. They just said, you know what, Jokic is going to score, and that's okay, but no one else is going to do anything, and that worked out. Denver scored just 109 points, and Portland got a lot of offensive contributions from a lot of people. Obviously, they got Dame's leadership, but guys like Nurk stepped up, Carmelo, Anthony Simons all stepped up, and Covington hit some big shots too. This game, that just didn't happen. CJ did end up with 21 and had an efficient shooting game, but it never really felt like he was fully like Portland really threatened
no.
at all. Just with their outside of Dame's stretch where he cut to 4, you think, oh man, is Dame just going to have one of those insane games? And Dame still had an amazing game.
Yeah.
42 and 10 is a ridiculous line,
Oh yeah,
but
definitely.
he just didn't get that help that he got. And Denver got multiple double-digit scores. Millsap and Morris off the bench, plus Porter Jr. played well. And I mean, you tip your cap to Denver; they did play well. It just looked like it is frustrating when it's a playoff game and it's obvious that one team wants it more.
Yeah, and I think that was obvious from the get-go. Denver definitely wanted it more. You saw them being a lot more aggressive. I thought just the way that they defended Portland to this game, instead of all out blitzing Dame and letting Portland swing the ball around, which was rare in the first place that Portland was even swinging the ball around like they did in game one. You had them more going one-on-one on Dame in the pick and roll. And then when Dame would swing it out, there wasn't any ball movement from there. If Melo caught the ball, Melo was taking the shot. If CJ caught the ball, CJ was taking the shot. And even though CJ had an efficient game, that's still not the team ball that you need to win a game. And even with the what I still feel like is an obvious talent gap between Denver and Portland, you're
Yeah.
not going to win a game in a playoff series, especially on the road, if you're trying to play ISO hero ball the whole game. Like it's just not going to happen. Yeah, Denver's too well coached for that.
Yeah, Denver is clearly the better coach team, which is where Denver can create their advantages. And it did seem like today was a game where there wasn't a ton of offensive strategy. It was just give the ball to Damon CJ and hope they go win it. But when you compound that with lazy defense and poor rotation and inconsistent officiating, that was obvious too. That Portland didn't really get very many favorable calls tonight. And the officials were really tight-lipped, especially in that third quarter. They were just not letting anything fly. Um, and on the road in a playoff game, just all that stuff adds up to a loss. You can't overcome bad defense, ISO ball, inconsistent coaching, questionable substitutions. inconsistent officiating on the road in the playoffs in the altitude. That just does not add up to a win at
Yeah,
all.
definitely. And I brought this up in kind of me, you, and John's group chat, but I don't want to blame the officiating for Portland loss.
No,
That's something
no.
I saw a lot of Denver fans after game one talking about, oh, the ref screwed us over in game one. I'm like, look, guys, we hear that all the time from every team ever who's lost a playoff game. It's always the ref's fault. No,
Yep.
it's not the ref's fault. If you're in a position where a call is deciding the game, then your team should have just played better from the onset. So I'm not going to blame Portland's loss on the reffing. Was the whistle favorable for us in the first half? Absolutely not. Was the flop by Campazzo, which I seriously hope he gets fined for because that was ridiculous and
That was
embarrassing.
insane.
Like that's terrible. I don't even know how you can call that if you're a ref. But at the same time, there were a lot of bad calls that went against Denver as well in the second half. So
Mhm.
I think it's just in general a reffing problem that needs to be fixed in the NBA, and I'm not gonna put that for Portland losing. Portland they just got out hustled this game. They got out hustled. They were
Oh yeah.
outplayed. They were completely out coached for as well as Terry Stotts did
Oh man. Yeah.
managing game one and slowing down Denver's role players. Man, it was the complete opposite for game two. He just got absolutely outcoached in every way possible.
And that's something we've been saying about Portland all season. When their initial game plan works, they're fine.
Yeah.
Like they execute it and they get it done.
Yeah.
But when their initial game plan does not work, they have such a tough time adjusting. And it almost seems like a panic mode of, oh shoot, the other team's playing well. Dame, go win it for us. And
Exactly.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just becomes this. There was even a play in the second half where, um, Denver, it was a really good play. Michael Porter poked the ball away from CJ, who dove on the floor and then ended up with a nice dunk for Shaq Harrison on the other end. I don't remember the last time I really saw a play from Portland like that.
No.
Like where they're just scrappy, diving on the floor. There was even a play, I think a loose ball where it went off of Covington's leg out of bounds, and Denver ended up missing, and Portland got a stop in either way. But Covington and Powell were both right there, and neither of them dove for the ball. And I'm like, guys, this is the playoffs. Like, this is when you sell out your body. You don't just assume that you're going to get a stop against an NBA team, even with only 3 seconds left on the shot clock. Um, there were mental errors like Nurk's foul on Millsap on the three.
Oh
Cantor
my
would just
gosh,
fall
yeah.
as Cantor just falling asleep at the free throw line after Gordon misses. Like, there's just Cantor fumbling passes. It was just really strange mental errors that you don't expect from a veteran team. Out hustled. It just was not a good performance.
Yeah, and this is something that I don't think we're ever going to know the answer to until Stotts has gone in. I fully anticipate Stotts being gone. I still think Portland wins this series in, I would say, probably 6 games based on how
Yeah,
tonight went. I think
agreed.
that they're going to come out a lot more fiery in game three. But this team compared to other teams, even though you have team like I would put the Clippers almost in the same spot as the Blazers. They're both kind of teams who are very talented. I would say the Clippers are more talented than the Blazers, but both teams,
Top to bottom, yeah.
yeah, top to bottom. But what they both struggle with is they get in their own heads, and I think both teams are mentally weak. And Portland's been this way for years now, and I don't know if that's a Stotts problem or if that's also the players. And I know Damian is a competitor, and I'm never gonna doubt that ever. But I don't even know how to describe it exactly, but there is definitely a difference between when Portland is hustling versus a team like the Lakers are hustling, or a team like
Yeah.
just that top tier elite team. You don't see that type of hustle, and you saw that type of hustle from Denver tonight, that type of urgency. Like, man, if we lose this game, our season's probably over, because it would have been.
Right.
And you don't see that from Portland. You just don't see that killer instinct. So it'll be interesting to see if, assuming Stotts is gone next year, if that
Yeah.
changes or if that's more of a personnel problem.
Portland has not had a true dog like that since Wesley Matthews.
Yeah.
And that really showed in the 2014 series against Houston. Wesley Matthews was unbelievable in that series. Lillard and Aldridge were superstars. Lillard has a big shot, and people forget how good LaMarcus Aldridge was in that series. He
Yeah.
was
He
amazing.
was amazing.
Nick Batum played really well. Robin Lopez played really well. But man, Houston wins if Wesley Matthews is in that series because Wesley Matthews just made defensive stops. He said, I'm going to take Harden, even if Harden's cooking. And there were games where Harden hit all his shots, but Wesley Matthews is like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna check him. He got that steal. I think it was in game 4, as time wound down. And Portland just doesn't have a guy like that. They've had individually good defenders. They still do with Nurkic and Covington,
And Powell to some
and even
degree.
Derek and Powell to some degree. But they don't have that bulldog, that Draymond Green, that a Morris twin, which is ironic because actually the Clippers have one of those, but
Yeah.
it kind of gets offset. But they don't have that. And the Lakers' length just also helps them, but just that guy who's just he'll dive on the floor. He'll motivate the team defensively in the huddle. Portland, their leaders motivate well after losses, not during losses. I think is a huge difference. Dame and Carmelo especially are awesome. After Portland gets punched in the mouth and loses, they'll say, we're not going to take this anymore, and they'll go on a hot streak. And they'll motivate the guys. But it's not always that we see that during a game. It's like it takes a full loss for that to happen, it seems like.
Yeah, it does. And, I don't know if some of this is, I almost think that there is a correlation between legit physical size along with being able to make those in-game adjustments, just because with size, you're able to make more of that impact. Like that's just the way it is. I mean, some of the only guys I can think of who are smaller who can have that type of impact in game would be Rajon Rondo would be one of them for sure.
Sure.
See, I don't even know if Curry necessarily on his own is, because we just saw them get knocked out. Honestly, Klay Thompson is almost somebody who can kind of get going. He's
big.
He
He's
is,
a
but
big
he's
guard.
still only 6. Wait, he's 6'5". Is he 6'5" or 6'6"?
I want to say 6'6" or
6'6".
6'7".
Still though, I mean, he's a shooting guard. So I mean, those are just a couple of guys though who I can think of who wouldn't be necessarily a forward position who can get going. But either way though, there's a lot for Portland to work on going into game 3. Drew, what are kind of some of the adjustments that you're looking for, I guess, from Portland going into game 3?
I don't even know if they need to be adjustments as opposed to just try harder. Like, yeah, we can complain about the officiating, but if Portland was more engaged defensively, refs are more likely to give them calls. That's just the way basketball works. Is officials do reward the more aggressive team, whether that's fair or not. I would expect maybe some. I mean, this is assuming they actually make an adjustment. Portland does not always make adjustments.
That's true.
I think maybe running Dame off the ball a little bit could be interesting. I think trying to run a little more with Nurkic out of the high post. I think those are some good ideas. Whether they'll happen or not, I don't know.
I would agree. I would say in theory, those are some good ideas and something that could be put into practice. However, I do not have the belief that that's something that Stotts will actually do, but hopefully he proves me wrong.
And you just need more from your role players than you got tonight. Nurkic was never allowed to be good because of foul trouble and defensive struggles. And Portland's strategy of funnel everything to the rim happened to not work when Jokic was drawing Nurkic out of the paint. Tends to not work.
Yeah, that was rough watching every single guard, every single forward on the Nuggets, especially in the first half. Like Monte Morris, great guard. I mean, great role player. He does what he's supposed to on Denver, but seeing him time and time again get by his primary defender out on the wing or even just up top and just get into the lane. And yeah, there'd be nobody there because Jokic is just sucking out, which was a good adjustment by Denver, but Jokic is just sucking them out. It was kind of interesting. How many assists did Jokic end up with tonight?
He actually only had 5.
And that makes sense because I noticed it wasn't him facilitating. It was more his presence instead of him being down in the post like he was in game 1 more of the time. It was him out on top. and just saying, hey, we don't think that Portland's guards can guard our guards or forwards. We're just going to play them one on one and we're going to take them in. And Portland switched on everything. So Denver would
Yeah.
get a good switch, get the matchup that they wanted to, and just take it down into the paint every single time. So Portland's got to find a way how to adjust to that in game 3.
Yeah. Through 2 games, what I found to be interesting is, I mean, like, obviously as a Blazer fan, I'm frustrated whenever Denver makes a shot, but I'm not so much frustrated when Jokic makes a shot as when really any other player makes a shot, except the occasional Michael Porter Jr. shot. Because Jokic's shot, I still think, again, Portland's defense wasn't good today, but the most contested shots were on Jokic.
Yeah.
And Jokic will just make ridiculous shots. That's what he does. He's the MVP, most likely. It's just when everything else is so wide open and the paint's open, it is where it got so frustrating. When Jokic was hitting some of those mid-range contested shots, push shots, whatever, I was like upset that they were going in because I'm a Blazers fan, but at the same time I was like, okay, whatever. Like, he makes shots. Defense wasn't perfect, especially from Cantor. Cantor really struggled today. But
yeah.
It's when those other players are allowed to get in a rhythm because Portland's playing poor defense is where it gets frustrating.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what adjustments are made in the first place, but seeing if Stotts changes the game plan up enough to the point where we maybe dare them to shoot some more threes, especially some of their more improving guards, Monte Morris, Austin Rivers, Campazzo, force them to shoot threes rather than driving into the paint, getting an and one or a foul, or just kicking it out to the corner or wing for a open 3 by Aaron Gordon or Michael Porter Jr. I'd like to see daring them to take more of the shot instead of them just getting into the paint every single time. Like, you can't have that happen. And it just completely ruined any chance Portland had of winning the game. And also offensively too, I agreed with what you were saying for as far as some adjustments that could be made, but I just want to see more motion on the off ball.
Yeah.
There was just no motion. It's just guys standing around, guys standing in their spots. There was no movement. I want to see more off ball screening, more motion, more cuts to the baseline. I just want to see more of that.
And that worked a couple times in tonight's game. It didn't do it much, but there was a play in the first quarter very early on where Nurkic made a beautiful pass to Lillard on a back cut. For a layup, and then I think it was Covington that actually got to the elbow and found CJ on a backdoor cut in the second half.
Yeah,
and both of them turned into layups, and they Portland has the passers to do it. Nurkic is a wonderful passer out of the high post. He's really, really good, and it's almost like, I mean, he's not the passer Jokic is, obviously.
No,
but you see those plays where, like, it's happened a couple times in the series where they just switch and Gordon seals a smaller defender and Jokic knows exactly what to do. Just whip it inside. And another thing that Portland's bigs haven't been, Nurkic was really good at this in game 1. Nurkic was phenomenal in game 1 overall. But there have been some fumbled passes by the Blazers bigs in the first couple games that should have been layups. Where the guard drove and made the correct dump pass. And again, like, sometimes passes aren't always easy to catch, but it's also your job to, like, get them and finish around the rim.
Cantor specifically has been really struggling with the physicality so far, with not getting the foul calls like he might be in the regular season. He has really been struggling, and I've noticed that they've been doubling him once he's catching the ball. They've really been doubling him and really swiping their hands down, and Cantor has not been dealing with that well at all. And then on top of that, add in his defensive liability, and he's been a net negative on the floor.
Which is very strange because I actually expected him to have a pretty solid series, especially as the backup center.
Yeah.
But that's another adjustment actually that I think needs to be made is Portland takes out Nurkic pretty early and Denver leaves Jokic in because they know that they're going to get Jokic on Cantor. And they just do it for like a 2 or 3 minute stretch,
Yeah.
but they know they're gonna get 8 points from Jokic in that 2 to 3 minute stretch.
Yeah.
So I think that's another adjustment to where like it's so tough because we don't really know exactly how long Nurkic can play in a game, but they kind of do have to time it with Jokic's rests and get a little creative and honestly maybe put someone like a Covington on Nurkic. I almost think that's the move is like because Jokic's size, he'll be able to shoot over the top of Covington.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, that's more preferable than the and one layups he's going to get with Cantor. I think what Portland needs to do, honestly, is consider either just playing Nurkic step for step with Jokic if he has the stamina to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If not, if Jokic is going to be able to play more minutes than Nurkic, then I think it has to be Covington on Jokic in those few minutes where Nurkic is off the floor and Jokic is on the floor.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not opposed to trying it. I mean, it can't go worse than when Canner's been on the floor. But if that's gonna happen, DJJ's has to play.
Yes.
And I don't think Stotts is gonna I don't think Stotts is gonna do that. I just don't believe in him. I don't think he hasn't proven to me once that he would make a move like that. So why would I think he would do that now?
I do think Portland should go small when Jokic is still in and Nurkic needs a breather. I think when Jokic leaves, you can put Cantor in, and that's fine because Denver doesn't Cantor's defense will still be poor, but Denver doesn't have the facilitating big man or the post threat.
Right. Although
Millsap was good.
Yeah, he had a good game.
He had a good game, but I don't expect that necessarily consistently from him anymore at this point in his career. So I don't think Cantor is completely unplayable by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the minutes you can play him are rather limited. I think it can just never be when Jokic is on the floor.
No. He's just getting toasted every single time Jokic is down there. And I mean, there's a difference between letting Jokic get his own and then just giving Jokic free points. There's a strong difference there. And Cantor is giving him free points, and you just can't do that.
And to your point, we saw that in game one. Nurkic made Jokic work for his points. Jokic got his points because he's really, really good.
Yeah.
But Nurkic made Jokic earn it, and Portland won the game going away convincingly.
Yeah.
So,
well, I definitely think that we're going to see some changes. At the very least, I think we'll see a much more rejuvenated Portland team. Word just came through today that Portland's going to be having a large vaccinated section open now, starting for Game 3. So we're going to have 8,000 fans there instead of the 1,900. So, which I'm glad about that. And, that's Portland's really loud as is. So I feel pretty confident about their chances heading into there. I still think that they're the vastly more talented team. I think that I just think we're going to see a better game from them. Maybe not shooting wise, but at least just overall play wise. And I think defensively, at the very least, we're just going to see more fire.
Yeah. I expect it either in game 3 or game 4. Sometimes Terry Stotts takes a couple games to adjust.
Yeah, he does.
Denver winning game 3 and then Portland reeling off 3 straight would not surprise me in the least.
It wouldn't.
I would not be shocked to see that at all, personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I just still think over the course of a 7-game series, Denver does not have the offensive firepower to make it happen. And I really don't think that you're going to see, and hey, maybe I get proven wrong here, but I just don't think that you see guys like Monte Morris, Campazzo, even Paul Millsap beating their guys off the 3-point line and driving in for layups or getting and ones. I don't think that you're going to see that. I also don't think either you're going to see, and again, if there's Denver fans listening to this podcast or to this live stream right now, don't get the wrong impression. Portland just flat out lost this game and Denver played better, but I don't think that you're going to see this kind of marginal and ticky-tack foul calling either, and that goes for both teams.
No.
That goes for both teams. There was way too much of that at the rim. Just terrible, really ticky-tack foul calls, and that's something that would, I think, affect Denver more so than Portland.
100%. And Portland's defense, and this is going to be a test these next 3 to 5 games, as it will be. Because now obviously we know there will be a game 5, back
Yes,
in Denver.
there will be.
But it'll almost be a test of how true is how historically bad is Portland's defense.
Yeah.
Because if Portland loses this series, it is because their defense was in fact just one of the worst of all time.
Which would be absolutely embarrassing considering that we've got Covington, who's been a all-team defensive player. You have Nurkic, who, when healthy, could make an argument of being a all-team defensive player at some point in his career, and Norman Powell,
Maybe.
who is maybe eh, at least a top-tier defensive center.
100%.
And then Norman Powell, who is a above average NBA defender. Like there's just no excuse for having this poor defense in. I am very much looking forward to Stotts being gone.
If Portland loses the series, he's gone.
I think he's gone either way. I think that we have to make the Western Conference Finals and play aggressively. That's what I've heard from people who are more in the know than me, and that's kind of what I tend to believe as well.
I would agree. I think maybe if, say, we lost in 7 to the Suns or the Lakers, maybe he keeps his job. Portland as a franchise is very, very loyal.
Yes.
Which stems from Dame, I think.
Yeah.
Partially. And Dame's never played with another coach before. In his career, in his NBA career, but
he needs it.
I think for sure. I mean, if Portland still wins the series but gets beaten 5 or gets swept by the Suns or the Lakers, Stotts is still gone.
Yeah.
Just because it's like this, he's not. It just proves he's not a championship coach. And Monty Williams and Frank Vogel are really good coaches, but they're not the Popoviches or the Spoelstras or Rick Carlisles of the world.
The thing is, I mean, I get that you're gonna have losses in the playoffs, so it's not even so much that I'm necessarily disappointed about a loss. Like, obviously it's gonna happen. Like, it's hard for any team to sweep another team. Like, Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon are 3 really, really, really good NBA players, and Jokic especially is. I mean, he's gonna be the MVP this year. So it's not that. It's more the way that you lose and the way that you play that brings you to that point.
Yeah.
And tonight really kind of reminded me that, man, Stotts is just so far behind other coaches in the league. Like he just is. The non-movement on offense is just absolutely unacceptable. You can't have that many lethal shooters, lethal offensive players just sitting around while Dame is doing his pick and roll dance. Like, as awesome as Dame was tonight, and he was absolutely amazing, you just can't have that.
No. I would love to see Portland. I mean, have we seen Portland run an elevator screen before?
Maybe a couple times. I think I saw it. I think they ran it back a few games ago. I can't remember who it was, but I think that who was it that they ran off? I almost want to say they ran Dame off a elevator screen. Might have to get fact checked on that.
You could run elevators. You could run. I think there's so much you can do with Nurkic and honestly Carmelo Anthony out of the high post.
Well, even Anthony Simons.
There's so much you can do.
Anthony Simons is such a good catch and shooter. I mean, there's no reason why we can't run him off elevator screens. That would fit right to his strength.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's so much you can do with it. And again, Portland still has one of the top offenses in the league. Like scoring production, and like the ball movement was better during the end of the regular season, even in game 1.
Yeah.
Like, and we saw like Portland had the best offense in the league. They just have to get back to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, we will see. Thanks to everyone who tuned in tonight. Couple days rest, which will hopefully serve well. Obviously, Dame played a lot of minutes. I think he played about 43 minutes, which is a lot. He and CJ played the whole second half. Dame only got 2 minutes of rest at the start of the second quarter and played the rest of the game until it was time to pull the starters.
Yeah.
So 2 days rest. Game 3 at 7:30 p.m. on NBA TV and NBC Sports Northwest. In Portland, like Kendall mentioned, 9,000 or 8,000 fans.
8,000,
vaccinated sections. And then game 4 on Saturday, game 5, I believe, the following Tuesday. So tune in and tune into this channel. Please subscribe. We will have live reactions from 2 of the 3 of us. It'll be John and Kendall on Thursday for game 3. After every Blazers playoff game, we'll have a live reaction on our YouTube channel. And every week we put out podcast episodes. This week, we had a fun conversation with my pop, who was our coach in high school for the Y-Ball starters. That's why we're called that. Fun conversation there. We have past episodes with Tanner and Jacob Groves, who are now with Oklahoma, Jared Lucas of Oregon State, Casey Benson, a former Duck, has been on a couple of times. He's our correspondent now. We've had some coaches, some reporters. So we've got a lot of fun podcast episodes to catch up on, and we put out a new one every week. So you can find those on YouTube and on Spotify if you prefer the audio listening in that way. So subscribe, follow us on Spotify. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Y-Ball Starters. Thanks again to everyone who tuned in tonight. Hopefully for a better result on Thursday for the Blazers in game 3, and have a great night.